Devastating attack on a Michigan church as Trump-loving veteran 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford, who served in the U.S. military from June 2004 to June 2008. In one image, Sanford poses alongside his wife and son, wearing a pro-Trump shirt with the message, "Make liberals cry again."
Mass shootings in America, it's almost like they've turned into a horrifying routine these days. According to the Gun Violence Archive, the numbers keep climbing every single year, and 2025 is already off the charts with at least 323 mass shootings so far. And the year isn't even over yet. That's more than 300 communities left scarred, more than 300 stories of lives shattered, and more than 300 chances for politicians to argue instead of actually doing something. The latest tragedy unfolded on Sunday in Michigan, and it was nothing short of a nightmare. Authorities say a man named Thomas Jacob Sanford drove a truck straight through the front doors of a church. Yes, right into the sanctuary where people were gathered for worship. Witnesses described pure chaos as Sanford stepped out and started unloading shots into the terrified crowd before reportedly setting a fire inside the building. 4 innocent people were killed in cold blood. 4 families completely destroyed in a matter of minutes. Police eventually took Sanford down, but not before the entire scene looked like something out of a war zone. And now the fallout begins, because as with every mass shooting in America, the finger pointing starts almost instantly. This tragedy comes right on the heels of heated debates after the killing of conservative Speaker Charlie Kirk, which already had both political sides tearing into each other with blame and accusations. And now this Michigan church attack is pouring even more fuel on that fire. For many, the biggest shock wasn't just the brutality of the attack, but who the shooter actually was. Reports say Sanford wasn't some random drifter. He was a former Marine, and even more explosive, he was reportedly a Trump supporter. That detail alone has completely blown up the online conversation. Some conservatives rushed to deflect, claiming mental health and lone wolf narratives, but critics weren't letting that slide one bit. Comedian and social commentator DL Hughley wasted no time blasting MAGA supporters for their silence and double standards. He's been posting non-stop about it, saying the hypocrisy is right in everyone's face. In one of his most pointed posts, Hughley wrote that conservatives are quick to scream when violence comes from anyone outside their camp, but when it's one of their own, suddenly it's excuses, excuses, excuses. He's not the only one calling it out either. His posts are being shared across social media, and people are clapping back at the way this tragedy is being framed. This Michigan shooting isn't just another horrific headline. It's becoming the latest political battlefield where the lives lost are being overshadowed by the fight over who gets to control the narrative. DL Hughley didn't hold back for a second. He went straight for the jugular with one of his harshest posts yet. He wrote, "Let me guess, since he's one of y'all, he's suddenly a troubled soul, mentally ill. Sprinkle in a few thoughts and prayers for the victims and then move on like nothing happened." That biting caption was paired with a video that spread across social media like wildfire, and people wasted no time jumping in the comments to echo his frustration. The reactions under DL's post were explosive. One person cut deep with a sharp question. "I wonder if all the MAGA people who cried for their beloved Charlie just last week will cry for these people killed by one of their own?" Another user threw down bluntly saying, "This white violence is getting out of hand." And someone else pointed out the double standard with a stinging observation. When the shooter is MAGA, suddenly the tone shifts. No more enemy at war or destroy them rhetoric. Suddenly it's calm, measured, and careful, because accountability hits way too close to home. Funny how fast the playbook changes when it's your own side pulling the trigger. And it didn't stop there. Over on X, another user captured the moment perfectly by highlighting the hypocrisy and how the narrative flipped. They wrote, "MAGA was so ready to scream there's a war on white Christians until they realized yet again the shooter is a white Christian himself." That single post alone racked up thousands of reposts and likes. with people saying the silence from conservative leaders spoke louder than any excuse they could come up with. The conversation was heating up so fast that it started to feel less like a debate and more like a public trial for MAGA hypocrisy. DL Hughley's followers weren't just venting, they were connecting the dots, pointing to a pattern where accountability always seems to get lost when it's one of their own who pulls the trigger. And right when the outrage was reaching its boiling point, all eyes turned to see how Donald Trump himself would respond. Sure enough, the former president took to his platform, Truth Social, to drop his statement on the shooting. His words were supposed to set the record straight, but depending on who you ask, they only raised even more questions about which side he's really trying to protect. Donald Trump finally weighed in with his official response on Truth Social, dropping a statement that was supposed to bring clarity, but instead lit another firestorm. He wrote, "I have been briefed on the horrendous shooting that took place at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Michigan. The FBI was immediately on scene and will be leading the federal investigation and providing full support to the state and local officials. The suspect is dead, but there's still a lot to learn. This appears to be yet another targeted attack on Christians in the United States of America. The Trump administration will keep the public posted, as we always do. In the meantime, pray for the victims and their families. This epidemic of violence in our country must end immediately." On the surface, Trump's message sounded polished, calling for prayers, unity, and an end to violence. But the internet wasn't buying it. Within minutes, critics swarmed his comments, pointing out glaring inaccuracies and the subtle but deliberate way he tried to shape the narrative. One user snapped back with a brutal reality check. Immediately after the Michigan church shooting, Trump implied the gunman was an anti-Christian leftist. But now we know the truth. The shooter was a white Iraq War veteran rocking a Make Liberals Cry Again shirt who set fire to a church and killed 3 people. This was no leftist attack. This was homegrown violence from the right. That post hit hard, and it started circulating everywhere, painting Trump's statement as misleading at best and manipulative at worst. Others piled on, accusing Trump of twisting the tragedy to fit his favorite talking point: the idea that Christians in America are under nonstop assault from the left. Social media users blasted him for trying to erase the shooter's political identity just because it clashed with his base. If the shooter had been a Muslim or an immigrant, Trump would have gone on a rant for weeks, one critic posted. But when it's a white veteran with MAGA ties, suddenly it's vague words, prayers, and silence about motive. The backlash grew so loud that even some moderates admitted Trump's response felt carefully calculated, designed to protect his supporters instead of confronting the uncomfortable truth. And that uncomfortable truth was simple. The Michigan shooter didn't come from the outside. He came from inside the very political culture Trump has been feeding for years. The criticism of Trump's response didn't fade away, it exploded. One viral post bluntly declared, "Trump lied again," and that message caught fire across X, racking up close to 8,000 reposts in just hours. The pushback wasn't just about the tragedy itself, it was about the way Trump was accused of spinning it to protect his base. For critics, this was deja vu, another case of him shaping a narrative that conveniently leaves out details too damaging to his own movement. Meanwhile, DL Hughley added more fuel to the outrage, hammering home how normalized mass shootings have become in America. He shared a meme that hit way too close to home. It read, "We may have a problem in our country when someone asks you, 'Did you see the news of this mass shooting?' And your response is, 'Which one?'" In his caption, Hughley cut even deeper, writing, "It is now ingrained into our brand. It's as much a part of Americana as apple pie, baseball, and racism." His words shook people because he was saying out loud what so many already feel. Mass violence has practically become an American trademark. As of this report, officials still hadn't confirmed the exact motive of 40-year-old Sanford or his political affiliations in detail, but the internet wasn't waiting for an official press conference. Receipts were already surfacing. USA Today and other outlets dug up a 2019 Facebook photo of Sanford standing proudly with his family, wearing a bright red MAGA shirt. That image alone sparked a wave of commentary about how the media and politicians dance around political labels only when the shooter happens to lean right. And it didn't stop there. Local outlet Free Press snapped a fresh picture of Sanford's property, and in plain sight was a bold Vote Trump van sign plastered on the fence of the former Marine's home. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. His own front yard told the story that some were trying to downplay. For many Americans, those details were all they needed to connect the dots. While officials slow-walked the investigation, the public was already debating whether Sanford's attack was another case of radicalization brewing right inside the MAGA culture. Online, people weren't just asking why he did it. They were asking how many more like him are out there waiting to explode.